The morning alarm rang through the space station as Captain Jake Morrison walked down the metal hallway toward the command center. His boots made soft sounds on the floor as he passed other crew members who were starting their daily work. Jake had been running this station for 3 years now, and every day felt the same until today. Today was different because they had received a message that would change everything. Lieutenant Kate Williams was already at her post when Jake entered the command center. She looked up from her screen with wide eyes and said the words that Jake had been waiting to hear his whole life. An alien ship was coming toward Earth, and they wanted to talk. The message was clear and peaceful, but Jake could feel his heart beating fast as he read the translation on the screen. The message came from something called the Zelani Confederation. They said they were a group of 12 different alien species who had been watching Earth for some time. They wanted to meet with humans to talk about joining their peaceful alliance. Jake read the message 3 times before he could believe it was real. After all these years of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, they finally had their answer. Admiral Lisa Brooks arrived on the station 2 hours later with a team of scientists and military officers. She was a tall woman with short gray hair who had spent most of her life studying the possibility of alien life. Now she was going to be the first human to actually meet aliens face to face. Jake watched as she set up her equipment in the main meeting room, checking every detail twice. The alien ship appeared on their screens exactly when the message said it would. It was unlike anything Jake had ever seen before. The ship was smooth and white, with strange curves that seemed to flow like water. It was much smaller than human ships, with no visible weapons or armor. As it came closer, Jake could see that it was beautiful in a way that human ships were not. Commander Ryan Bell was in charge of the station's weapons, and he was nervous about the alien ship being so close to Earth. He kept checking his screens and asking Jake if they should power up their defensive systems. Jake told him to keep the weapons ready, but not to show them. They wanted him to make a good first impression, even though every human instinct told them to be careful. The alien ship docked with their station, using technology that seemed like magic to the human crew. There were no loud noises or shaking like when human ships connected. The alien ship simply seemed to melt into their station like it had always been there. Jake and Admiral Brooks waited in the docking bay as the airlock opened for the first time. The first alien to step through the door was unlike anything Jake had imagined. She was tall and thin, with skin that looked like it was made of silver. Her eyes were large and blue, and she moved with a grace that made her seem like she was floating. She spoke perfect English, which surprised everyone in the room. The alien introduced herself as Kethara, an ambassador for the Zelani Confederation. She explained that her people had been learning human languages by listening to Earth's radio and television signals for many years. She said she was honored to finally meet humans in person and hoped they could become friends and allies. Admiral Brooks welcomed Kethara to the station and invited her to the meeting room they had prepared. As they walked through the station, Jake noticed that Kethara seemed to be looking at everything very carefully. Her eyes moved over the walls and ceiling like she was searching for something. When they passed a security checkpoint, she stopped and stared at the weapon scanners. For a long moment in the meeting room, Kethara sat across from Admiral Brooks and her team. She explained that the Zelani Confederation was made up of 12 different species from different planets who had all chosen to live in peace. They had been traveling through space for thousands of years, looking for other intelligent species to join their alliance. She said that humans seemed like they would be a good fit for their group. Admiral Brooks asked many questions about the Zelani and their alliance. She wanted to know about their technology, their government, and their military. When she asked about military forces, Kethara seemed confused. She explained that the Zelani had not needed military forces for over 1,000 years because all The species and their alliance had agreed to solve problems with words instead of weapons. As the meeting continued, Jake noticed that Cathara kept looking around the room with a puzzled expression. Finally, she asked a question that made everyone uncomfortable. She wanted to know why the meeting room had hidden weapon systems in the walls and ceiling. She could see them with her alien senses, even though they were invisible to human eyes. Admiral Brooks tried to explain that the weapons were just a safety measure, but Cathara seemed even more confused. She asked why humans would need safety measures when they were having a peaceful meeting. She pointed out that her ship had no weapons at all, and that she had come alone to show trust. Then Cathara asked the question that would change everything. She wanted to know why humans had so many weapons and military bases all over their planet and in space around Earth. She had seen the massive defense systems and the armed ships that protected human space. She asked why a species that seemed intelligent and capable would spend so much time and energy preparing for war. The room became very quiet as the human team looked at each other. Admiral Brooks cleared her throat and said that it was a complicated question that would take time to answer properly. She suggested that they end the meeting for the day and continue their discussions tomorrow. She promised that they would answer all of Cathara's questions, but they needed time to prepare their explanation. Cathara agreed to wait, but Jake could see in her eyes that she was troubled by what she had seen. As she left the meeting room, she looked back at the hidden weapons one more time. Jake realized that the first meeting with aliens had not gone the way anyone had hoped, and tomorrow they would have to explain things about humanity that they had never had to explain before. President Maria Santos sat at the head of the long table in the underground meeting room beneath the White House. The room was built deep in the earth where no alien sensors could reach, and today it was filled with the most important people on Earth. Everyone was talking at once about the alien meeting, and Maria had to bang her hand on the table to make them stop. General Paul Wright was the first to speak when the room became quiet. He was an old soldier with scars on his face from wars that most people had forgotten. He believed that humans should tell the aliens everything about their history, even the parts that were dark and scary. He said that lies would only make things worse when the truth came out later. Dr. Helen Park disagreed with the general in a strong voice. She was Earth's top expert on human behavior and culture, and she had spent years studying how different groups of people react to each other. She warned that telling aliens about humanity's violent past might scare them away forever. She thought it would be better to slowly introduce the aliens to human history over many months or years. Admiral Brooks joined the meeting by video link from the space station, where she was still dealing with the alien ambassador. She looked tired after her long day of trying to answer difficult questions without really answering them. She told the president that the alien seemed truly confused by human military preparations and that her confusion was turning into worry. Secretary of Defense Robert Kim explained that Earth's defense systems had been built over many years to protect against threats that most people did not even know existed. He said that the weapons and military bases were not there to attack other planets, but to defend Earth from dangers that had come before and might come again. The president asked him to explain what he meant, but Robert said that information was too secret to discuss even in this secure room. Meanwhile, high above Earth on the alien ship, Cathara was having her own meeting with her science team. The alien ship was small on the outside, but seemed much larger inside, with rooms that curved and flowed in ways that would make humans dizzy. Cathara sat in a chair that seemed to be made of light, while her officers stood around her in a circle. Vorthan was Cathara's science officer, and he had been studying the humans since their ship arrived in the solar system. He was shorter than Cathara, with skin that changed colors when he was excited or worried. Right now his skin was flashing red and orange, which meant he was very concerned about what he had discovered. Vo then showed Kithara the results of his scans of Earth and the human space around it. Every continent on the planet had military bases with weapons that could destroy entire cities. The humans had built massive factories that made nothing but weapons and ammunition. In space around Earth, there were hundreds of armed satellites and space stations that could shoot down anything that came too close. The science officer also showed Kithara scans of human civilian ships, the ones that regular people used for travel and trade. Even these ships carried weapons and armor that would be illegal in Zilani space. It was like every human expected to be attacked at any moment, even when they were just going from one planet to another for business or vacation. Kithara asked Vorthen if humans might be planning to attack the Zilani Confederation. The science officer said that the human weapons were not pointing outward toward other star systems, but inward toward Earth itself. It was like they were expecting something to attack their home planet and were ready to fight back with everything they had. The alien ambassador was troubled by this information because it meant that humans were either very afraid of something or very dangerous themselves. In all their travels through space, the Zilani had never met a species that was so heavily armed while also claiming to be peaceful. Most species either chose war or peace, but humans seemed to have chosen both at the same time. Back on Earth, President Santos was listening to reports from intelligence agencies around the world. Every government on the planet was asking the same questions about what to tell the aliens and how much truth they could handle. Some countries wanted to lie and pretend that humans were naturally peaceful, while others thought it was better to show strength and make the aliens respect human power. Dr. Park presented her research on how first contact situations had been imagined by human writers and scientists over the years. She said that most stories ended badly when there was too much difference between the alien and human ways of thinking. She worried that aliens who had lived in peace for thousands of years might not understand why humans always prepared for war. General Wright argued that preparing for war was what had kept humans alive long enough to reach the stars. He said that Earth had faced many dangers over the millions of years that humans had existed, and only the humans who were ready to fight had survived to have children. He believed that aliens needed to understand this about humans if they were going to be real allies. The meeting was interrupted when Admiral Brooks called with urgent news from the space station. The alien ambassador had requested another meeting for the next day, and she wanted a complete explanation of human military preparations. If the humans could not give her a good answer, she would recommend that the Zilani Confederation avoid contact with Earth until humans became more peaceful. President Santos realized that humanity had reached a crossroads that would determine their future in the galaxy. If they told the truth about their history, they might scare away their first alien allies. If they lied, they might be discovered later and lose all trust. She decided the truth was the only choice that would work in the long run, even if it was dangerous. The president ordered Dr. Park to prepare a complete file of human history, including all the wars, disasters, and dark periods that had shaped human civilization. She told General Wright to gather military records that showed why Earth needed so many weapons and defenses. Most importantly, she authorized the release of classified information that only a few people on Earth knew about. As the meeting ended, everyone in the room understood that tomorrow would be one of the most important days in human history. They would either gain powerful allies among the stars or find themselves alone in a galaxy that thought they were too dangerous to trust. The next few hours would determine whether humanity's long journey to the stars would continue or end before it had really begun. Admiral Brooks returned to the space station, knowing that she would have to explain things about humanity that she had hoped would stay secret forever. She carried with her a data crystal that contained information so sensitive that it could change how aliens saw humans for all time. Tomorrow, she would find out if the truth would set humanity free or lock them away from the rest of the galaxy forever. Admiral Brooks stood in front of the large screen in the meeting room, holding the data crystal that contained humanity's darkest secrets. Cathara sat across from her with two other Zalani officers who had come to hear the human explanation. The room felt different today, heavier somehow, as if the weight of history was pressing down on everyone inside. Brooks began by showing images of Earth from millions of years ago, when the first human ancestors were learning to walk upright. In the African grasslands, the pictures showed a world that was beautiful but deadly, filled with creatures that could kill a human with a single bite or claw. Unlike the peaceful worlds where the Zalani had evolved, Earth had always been a place where only the strongest and smartest survived. The Admiral explained that early humans were not the biggest or fastest animals on their planet. They had no natural weapons like claws or fangs, and they could not fly or swim as well as other creatures. What they had instead was the ability to think and plan and work together to overcome enemies that were much more powerful than they were individually. Cathara watched as the screen showed ancient cave paintings of humans hunting massive beasts with nothing but stone spears and fire. She could see that these early humans had learned to make tools and weapons, not because they wanted to conquer other species, but because they needed them just to stay alive. Every day was a fight for survival against creatures that saw humans as food. Dr. Kevin Price joined the meeting by video link from Earth, where he had spent the night preparing historical data that had never been shared with aliens before. He was a quiet man with thick glasses who had devoted his life to studying the patterns of human history. He began to explain something that even most humans did not fully understand about their own past. Dr. Price showed the Zalani a timeline that covered the last 100,000 years of human history. Every few thousand years, something terrible happened to Earth that killed most of the life on the planet. Sometimes it was a giant asteroid that crashed into the ground and filled the sky with dust for years. Other times it was volcanoes that erupted and covered the world with poisonous gas and ash. The worst events were ice ages that lasted for thousands of years, turning most of the planet into a frozen wasteland where nothing could grow. During these times, humans had to fight not just against other animals, but against the planet itself. They learned to make better tools, build stronger shelters, and store food for long winters that might last for generations. Cathara asked why. The Zalani had never detected these disasters when they were studying Earth from far away. Dr. Price explained that humans had learned to see the signs of coming disasters and prepare for them long before they happened. When they saw certain patterns in the stars or felt the ground shaking in a particular way, they knew that something bad was coming and they had to get ready. Commander Bell added his perspective as a military officer who had studied human warfare for his entire career. He explained that humans had not invented weapons because they wanted to hurt other people, but because they had learned that peace never lasted forever. Even when humans were not fighting animals or natural disasters, they sometimes had to fight other groups of humans who wanted to take their food, land, or resources. The screen showed images of human history that made the Zalani officers uncomfortable. There were pictures of great cities that had been destroyed by earthquakes, floods, and volcanic eruptions. There were maps showing how human populations had moved across the world whenever their homes became too dangerous to live in. Every movement was driven by the need to find a safer place to survive. Dr. Price explained that humans had developed a way of thinking that was different from other intelligent species in the galaxy. They never assumed that peace would last forever because their experience had taught them that disaster could come at any time. This made them always prepare for the worst possible situation, even when everything seemed calm and safe. The Admiral showed the Zalani something that surprised them even more than the natural disasters. Throughout human history, there had been. Diseases that killed millions of people in just a few years. These plagues spread faster than humans could run away from them, and they taught humans that enemies could be invisible and impossible to fight with normal weapons. Humans had learned to build hospitals and develop medicines, not just to help sick people get better, but to prepare for the next plague that would inevitably come. They created systems to quickly identify new diseases and stop them from spreading. They stockpiled medical supplies and trained doctors and nurses to handle emergencies that might happen decades in the future. Cathar began to understand that human military preparations were not really about fighting wars with other species. They were about being ready for any kind of threat that might come from anywhere at any time. Humans had learned through bitter experience that the universe was a dangerous place where only the prepared survived. Dr. Price showed the final piece of evidence that explained why humans were so heavily armed. Over the centuries, humans had discovered that Earth was located in a particularly dangerous part of the galaxy. Their solar system was close to unstable stars that could send out deadly radiation without warning. It was in the path of asteroid swarms that could destroy planets. It was even near black holes that could pull entire solar systems into oblivion. The Admiral explained that human space technology had been developed not to explore the galaxy for fun or profit, but to give humanity a way to escape from Earth if something happened that made the planet uninhabitable. Every human space station, colony ship, and military base was part of a plan to make sure that humans would survive, even if Earth itself was destroyed. Commander Bell added that human weapons in space were designed to protect Earth from threats that came from outside the solar system. Humans had detected strange objects moving through space that seemed to be heading toward inhabited star systems. Some of these objects had caused entire civilizations to disappear without any explanation of what had happened to them. The Zelani officers sat in silence as they absorbed this information. They had come to Earth expecting to meet a warlike species that needed to be convinced to choose peace. Instead, they had discovered a species that had been forced to become warriors by the circumstances of their existence. Humans were not aggressive by choice, but by necessity. Cathara asked the question that was troubling her the most. If humans had survived all these disasters and threats over millions of years, what were they afraid of now that made them continue to build weapons and prepare for war? Admiral Brooks looked at her with sad eyes and said that the worst part of the story was still to come. Tomorrow she would explain the real reason why humans could never let their guard down, even for a moment. Admiral Brooks walked into the meeting room, carrying a black case that required 3 different security codes to open. The case contained information that was classified at the highest levels of human government, secrets that could cause panic if ordinary people knew about them. Today she was going to share these secrets with aliens for the first time in human history. Cathara and her officers sat quietly as Brooks placed the case on the table and began to enter the security codes. The alien ambassador had spent the night thinking about everything she had learned about human history, and she thought she understood why humans were so prepared for disaster. She was not ready for what she was about to hear. Brooks opened the case and removed a data storage device that glowed with a soft blue light. She explained that what she was about to show the Zelani was known by fewer than 100 humans on Earth, and those humans had sworn oaths to keep the information secret until the day they died. The only reason she could share it now was because the President of Earth had given her special permission. The Admiral connected the device to the room's display system and began to show images. That made the Zelani officers gasp in shock. The pictures showed battlefields on Earth that were unlike anything from normal human wars. There were weapons that no human civilization had ever built, and the remains of creatures that did not look like anything that had ever lived on Earth. Brooks explained that human historians had always wondered why certain periods of human development had happened so quickly. Why had humans suddenly learned to make better tools during the Ice Age? Why had they developed agriculture and cities so fast after thousands of years of hunting and gathering? Why had they created advanced technology in just a few hundred years? After centuries of slow progress, the answer was that humans had not developed these advances on their own. They had been forced to learn and grow by 3 separate invasions of Earth by alien species that wanted to destroy or control human civilization. Each invasion had pushed humans to become stronger, smarter, and more prepared for the next threat that would inevitably come. The first invasion had happened 12,000 years ago, during the last Ice Age, when humans were still living in caves and hunting with stone spears. The invaders were called the Devourers, and they were a species that traveled from planet to planet, eating everything that lived there. They had already destroyed dozens of worlds by the time they reached Earth. Kathara watched in horror as the screen showed evidence of the Devourer invasion. There were cave paintings that showed humans fighting against monsters that were 10 times their size. There were ancient battlefields where human stone weapons were found, mixed with pieces of alien technology that was far more advanced than anything humans could have made. The Devourers had expected to find Earth easy to conquer because humans seemed so primitive and weak. They had not counted on human intelligence and determination to survive no matter what the cost. Humans had studied the alien invaders, learned their weaknesses, and used their own technology against them in ways the Devourers had never expected. Price joined the meeting to explain how the Devourer War had changed human society forever. Humans had been forced to work together in larger groups to fight the aliens. They had learned to make better weapons and tools by copying alien technology. Most importantly, they had learned that the universe contained threats that were far worse than anything on Earth. The second invasion had happened 2,000 years ago, during the time when humans were building their first great civilizations. The invaders this time were called the Silents, and they were a species that fed on the mental energy of other intelligent beings. They did not want to destroy human bodies, but to harvest human minds, like farmers harvesting crops. The Silence invasion was harder to detect because it did not involve visible battles or physical destruction. Instead, entire human cities would suddenly become empty as the people fell into deep sleeps from which they never woke up. The aliens were draining human consciousness and leaving behind empty bodies that could not think or feel. Major Amy Collins appeared on the screen from a secret military base where she worked as Earth's expert on alien archaeology. She had spent years studying the evidence of alien invasions that most humans never knew had happened. She explained that the Silents had nearly succeeded in harvesting all human minds before humans figured out how to fight back. The key to defeating the Silents had been human psychological resilience, the same mental toughness that had helped humans survive ice ages and natural disasters. Humans had learned to protect their minds by developing meditation techniques, mental exercises, and ways of thinking that made them difficult for the aliens to control or harvest. The third invasion had been the most recent and the most dangerous. It had happened only 200 years ago, during the early days of human industrial development. The invaders were called the Collective, and they were a hive mind species that absorbed other intelligent species into their group consciousness. Unlike the previous invaders, the Collective did not want to destroy humans or harvest them. They wanted to make humans part of their hive mind so that human knowledge and abilities would make the Collective stronger. They believed they were offering humans a gift by removing the loneliness and conflict that came with individual consciousness. Collective invasion had been the hardest to fight because the aliens offered something that many humans actually wanted. They promised an end to war, poverty, and suffering if humans would just give up their individual minds and join the collective consciousness. Many humans had been tempted to accept this offer, especially during difficult times. Brooks explained that the Collective had nearly succeeded by using human psychology against itself. They had appeared during a period of great human conflict, when nations were fighting wars and people were suffering from economic problems. The aliens had offered peace and prosperity in exchange for human freedom. The thing that had saved humanity from the collective was the same: stubborn independence that had made humans difficult to conquer throughout their history. Even when life was hard and painful, most humans had chosen to remain individuals, rather than give up their personal thoughts and feelings to become part of something larger. Major Collins showed the Zelani the most shocking evidence of all. In hidden locations around Earth, there were storage facilities that contained alien technology from all three invasions. Humans had not just defeated these alien species, they had captured their ships, weapons, and equipment. Human scientists had been studying this technology for generations. The Major explained that much of what the Zelani thought was human technology was actually based on alien designs that had been captured during the invasions. Human spaceships used engines that were inspired by Devourer technology. Human computers used processing methods that had been learned from studying silence equipment. Human weapons systems were based on collective designs. Cathara asked the question that was burning in her mind. What had happened to these three alien species after their invasions of Earth failed? The room became very quiet as Admiral Brooks prepared to give the answer that would change everything the Zelani thought they knew about humans. Brooks explained that humans had not been content to simply drive away the invaders. Each alien species had been tracked back to their home worlds and eliminated completely. The Devourers, the Silence, and the Collective no longer existed anywhere in the galaxy because humans had made sure they could never threaten Earth or any other world again. The Admiral showed the final piece of evidence, star charts that marked the locations of dead worlds where the three alien species had once lived. These worlds were now empty and lifeless because humans had systematically destroyed every trace of the species that had dared to attack Earth. It had taken generations of secret human missions, but the job had been completed. The meeting room fell completely silent as the weight of Admiral Brooks' words settled over the Zelani delegation. Cathara stared at the star charts, showing the dead worlds where three entire alien species had once lived before humans had erased them from existence. Her silver skin had turned pale, and her large blue eyes were wide with shock at what she had just learned. Vorthan was the first to break the silence, his skin flashing rapidly between different colors as his emotions overwhelmed his ability to control them. He asked Admiral Brooks to repeat what she had just said, because he could not believe that a species as primitive as humans had been just a few thousand years ago could have completely destroyed three advanced alien civilizations. Brooks calmly repeated the information, adding details that made the truth even more disturbing. The Devourers had been nomadic destroyers who had consumed 47 different worlds before they made the mistake of attacking Earth. They had technology that could strip a planet bare of all life in just a few months, but they had underestimated human determination and creativity. The Silence had been even more successful in their conquests, having harvested the mental energy of intelligent beings from 31 different star systems before they encountered humans. They had perfected techniques for draining consciousness that had worked on every other species they had met, but human minds had proven to be too chaotic and unpredictable for their methods. The Collective had been the most dangerous of all the Chu invaders because they had absorbed 19 entire civilizations into their hive mind, making themselves stronger with each conquest. They had convinced other species to join them willingly by offering peace and unity, but humans had rejected their offer and fought back with a ferocity that the Collective had never experienced. Cathara asked how humans could have possibly defeated such powerful enemies when they were so much less advanced technologically. Major Collins explained that humans had advantages that the alien invaders had not expected or understood. Humans were unpredictable in ways that confused enemies who were used to fighting more logical species, and Major showed the Zilani historical records of human tactics during the 3 invasions. Against the Devourers, humans had used guerrilla warfare and psychological operations that drove the aliens to make mistakes. Against the Silence, humans had used meditation and mental discipline to protect their consciousness while launching surprise attacks on alien bases. Against the Collective, humans had pretended to accept the hive mind offer while secretly planning resistance operations that struck at the heart of the alien command structure. In each case, humans had turned their apparent weaknesses into strengths that their enemies could not counter effectively. Price added that humans had learned something important from each invasion that helped them prepare for the next one. The Devourer War had taught humans to work together on a global scale and to develop technology quickly when survival was at stake. The Silence invasion had taught humans to protect their minds and to value individual consciousness above comfort. Or Security. The Collective invasion had been the most recent, and had taught humans the final lesson they needed to become truly dangerous to their enemies. They had learned that sometimes the best defense was a complete offense that eliminated threats before they could strike again. This was why humans had hunted down and destroyed all 3 alien species, instead of just driving them away from Earth. Vor then analyzed the data that the humans had shared and made a discovery that shocked him even more than the news of the invasions. According to Zilani historical records, the 3 species that had invaded Earth were legendary throughout the galaxy. They were the monsters that parents told their children about in scary stories, the unstoppable forces that entire civilizations had nightmares about. The science officer explained to Kethara that the Devourers were considered to be the most destructive force in known galactic history. The Silence were thought to be impossible to defeat because they could control the minds of their enemies. The Collective were feared because they had never failed to absorb every species they encountered into their hive mind. Yet somehow, humans had not only defeated all 3 of these legendary threats, but had completely erased them from the galaxy. Species that had terrified advanced civilizations for thousands of years had been eliminated by a primitive planet that most aliens had never even heard of until today. Kethara realized that her understanding of humans had been completely wrong. From the beginning, she had thought they were an aggressive warlike species that needed to be taught the value of peace. Instead, she had discovered survivors who had been tested by the worst threats the galaxy could produce and had emerged victorious every time. The alien ambassador asked Admiral Brooks the question that would determine the future relationship between humans and the Zilani Confederation. She wanted to know if humans were planning to expand their territory and conquer other worlds now that they had proven their ability to destroy entire civilizations. Brooks smiled for the first time since the meetings had begun and explained that humans had no interest in conquering other species or taking their worlds. Everything humans had done was about protecting Earth and ensuring the survival of their own species. They had built weapons and military forces not to attack others, but to make sure that no threat could ever destroy human civilization. The Admiral added that humans actually preferred peace and cooperation when it was possible. They had learned from their history that war was expensive and destructive, and they would rather trade and share knowledge with other species than fight them. But they had also learned that peace was only possible when potential enemies knew that attacking humans would result in their complete destruction. Commander Bell explained that human military doctrine was based on a simple principle that had kept Earth safe for the past 200 years. Any species that attacked humans or threatened human civilization would be hunted down and eliminated without mercy or negotiation. This policy had worked so well that no alien species had attempted to invade Earth since the Collective War. Kethara sat in stunned silence as she processed everything she had learned about humans over the past 2 days. She had come to Earth, expecting to find either peaceful allies or dangerous enemies that needed to be contained. Instead, she had found something that was completely unprecedented in galactic history. Humans were a species that had achieved peace through strength, not weakness. They had eliminated the greatest threats the galaxy had ever known while still maintaining their individuality and freedom. They had proven that it was possible to be both peaceful and terrifyingly dangerous at the same time. The alien ambassador made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Instead of recommending that the Zalani Confederation avoid contact with humans, she was going to recommend that they actively seek a military alliance with Earth. For the first time in thousands of years, the peaceful species of the galaxy would have protectors who were capable of defending them against any threat. Vor then asked what this would mean for the Confederation's policy of solving conflicts through negotiation instead of violence. Cathara explained that humans had proven that some threats could not be negotiated with or reasoned away. Having humans as allies would mean that the Confederation could continue to be peaceful because humans would handle the enemies that were too dangerous for diplomacy. The meeting ended with Cathara requesting immediate permission to begin formal alliance negotiations with Earth. She explained to her government that humans were not the aggressive warmongers they had appeared to be, but were instead the ultimate guardians who had already made the galaxy safer by eliminating its worst threats. As the Zalani delegation prepared to leave Earth, Admiral Brooks realized that humanity had passed the most important test of their existence. They had proven that their strength came not from a desire to conquer others, but from a determination to protect what they valued. For the first time in human history, they would not face the dangers of the galaxy alone.